How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be replacing the AC condenser on my 2003 Saab 9.3. Now this car has not had AC, quite honestly, for the last 2 years or so, and I have just been pushing off fixing it and continuing to push it off and just pretty much not driving the car much during the summer, but it's finally time to get this thing fixed. So if the AC in your car doesn't work, there's a few different ways that you can diagnose it. The way that I chose, instead of just throwing parts at it, is taking it to a shop here in Phoenix called IMM. They specialize in Saab stuff here. So they put dye in the system and checked for leaks, and they found out that my AC condenser is leaking. So I got a new one, and today we're going to replace it. Now, one thing I do want to mention is if you are doing a repair like this, you need to make sure that all of the Freon in your system is drained, because when you open up these lines, if you let Freon out, it's very bad to, one, breathe in, and also for the environment. So definitely make sure you take the car to a shop or somewhere where they can drain all the Freon out of the system before you do this repair. Hopefully this repair won't be too bad. It shouldn't be much different than doing like the intercooler. When I did the DO88 intercooler on this car, I'll link that video in the top corner up here if you want to see it. But pretty much all we're going to have to do is take the front bumper off, take this upper radiator support off. We might have to take the headlights off and then a couple things underneath, but hopefully it won't be too big of a job. So without further ado, let's go ahead, get into it. You guys have seen me remove the bumper plenty of times in videos before, but in case you don't know, you got to take off the under tray down here. There's 3 screws in each of the fender liner here, and then the clips that are up here that's connected to the upper radiator support. Next, we need to take off this upper radiator support, which is just a bunch of 10mm screws. We also need to take out this last bolt for the headlight, because the headlight is kind of holding this support in. Last thing is to unplug the horn. Now you can fully remove this, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to mess with the hood cable. So instead, I'm just going to pop it out and pretty much put it on top of the engine. We can pull this thing off now. Now we have a pretty good view of everything. Here's our condenser right in the front, and we've got our intercooler and our radiator. So if you come down under here, there's a radiator bracket, this one right here on the passenger side. That is a E-socket, or an E-socket that holds that in, so you need to remove that. I'm also probably going to take off this 10mm here, because this bracket connects to this, which connects to that. A little bit of an unorthodox way to get that out, but it works. So the back side of it, where it mounts to the car, you can see there's that little tab or clip at the top, so you kind of have to bend it up and then it'll come out. So that's why I was pushing this whole thing up with my leg here, so I could bend this up and then slide it out. Now we can go ahead and take off our connections for the condenser. So there's actually 2 of them. I'll show you guys on the new condenser right here. There's one kind of in the middle top part. This is on the passenger side, and then there's one all the way at the bottom on the passenger side. They both look exactly like this. Intake pipe right here is in my way, so I'm just going to remove it. I'm just going to use a flathead to pull this little like retaining clip off. So I just pull that off, and I can probably just leave it like that, honestly. Now we have good access to this. Lastly, we have 2 T25 screws that connect the condenser to the top of the radiator, or the intercooler. Now we should just be able to lift up our condenser. Nice and easy. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this would be a very similar job to the intercooler. It's actually even easier than the intercooler, because with the intercooler you have to take off the charge pipes. Obviously you have to take off like these things, which aren't very hard, but there's just, you know, you have to also disconnect it from the radiator, and then you have to try and sandwich it between these two. So this is a very simple job. I mean, I am literally 30 minutes into this, so far so good. Here's the old condenser. I figure I should show this. You can see where the crash bar is on the bumper, like pretty much right through this middle section here, because there's a ton of just destroyed fins. There's a nice little dead bee hanging out right there. The bottom of this is all smashed up, just probably from age and stuff. There's a pretty big, you know, hole in it right there, so it could have been leaking from a variety of spots, but you know, it was pretty clear that it was time to have this thing replaced. The backside looks pretty good though. When you drop your new condenser in, you'll see there's two of these tabs at the bottom, one on either side. They need to just slide into the intercooler. There's a little bracket on the intercooler that holds it in place. Careful not to damage any of the fins. Now it's time to reinstall the two screws that hold the condenser to the intercooler. We can reinstall our bolts that hold the condenser lines in. I'm going to put this air intake pipe back into place. So there's a little nipple on the bottom of the radiator that needs to go into this hole right here. The jack method ended up working pretty well. Probably could have used that when I took it off too, but didn't think of it. I did think of it, I just decided to see if I could do it the most awkward way possible first. Put this little air thing, put this back on. Now this can be a little bit tricky to get back into place. And don't forget to plug in your horn. This upper radiator support can be a little bit finicky, so I'm going to start by just threading all the bolts in a couple turns. We put our battery cover in the snorkel for the battery, or the snorkel air intake, whatever you want to call it, for the battery back on. Last but not least, we got to put my Swedish plate back on. Now the reason why I take this off when I put the bumper back on is these bolts, or these screws that go into the bumper that hold this on, go through the bumper far enough to where the foam that sits between the bumper and the crash support gets pushed back. So when I try and put the bumper on with the plate on, it doesn't line up right, so I have to take the plate off every time. So it's a little bit annoying, but you know, not a big deal. I should also mention that if you're expecting me to show you how to charge the AC, I'm not going to be doing that in this video. I'm going to be taking it back to IMM to have them do that for me. I don't have any experience charging AC. I understand it's not too complicated, but I'd rather just pay a shop to do it, and they'll probably also check for more leaks while I have the car in there as well. Make sure to check out my Patreon if you haven't already. It will be linked at the top of the description. But that's all I've got for today, guys. I don't know, I was hoping to time this right to when I finish putting the plate on. Now I can't get it in. Okay. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.